All right, so let's see if you guys are back with me. Fire up the old KLR again and finish our ride. That wind noise is sounding pretty loud from here. Let's put the visor down and go from there. Alright, hopefully this is a little better audio here. Hopefully we're getting audio at all. Yeah, like I said, I just got the camera and microphone set up, put in here. One thing I was really curious about was how much of a pain this microphone is going to be in here. I had to stuff all the wires and everything in here, and I stuffed it behind the padding, and I can't even tell it's there. So hopefully the audio is coming through all right. If not, we'll do this again in the next one. It'll be a fun time. I gotta tell you, it's just absolutely beautiful up here. It's kind of nice. Go out, stop, have a break for a little bit, check my phone. Didn't have any cell service. Oh, I love it when that happens. It's getting harder and harder to do nowadays. Well, the sky's clear, the stars are out. Just a beautiful night out here. Yeah, and even on the GS, I don't go this far very often. I usually just go where the Salt River tubing place is and turn around. Just a quick 20-mile in and out. But figure I'm taking you guys along for the ride, so do the extended version today. I'm not going to complain about that one bit. I hope you guys aren't either. Like I was talking about, one of the things that I kind of want to get into is, you know, just kind of talking about just stuff, just things, life in general, perspectives, all that kind of fun stuff. And yeah, hopefully the audio works out pretty well on this thing, and we can get started with the first one. So it's one thing I've always been a curious person. You know, I'm sure I drove my parents absolutely crazy when I was growing up, because there was always why. There was, oh, why? Yeah, we can't go to the pool today. Well, why? Well, because your parents have to work. Well, why? Well, because we have to make money. Why? And just on and on and on. You know how kids do. I was definitely one of those kids. And that is still 120% my personality. I am still why. And unfortunately, I think it's a mentality that we don't have as much of anymore. You know, there are so many times where people don't stop to question why, and we just accept whatever's presented to us and accept it as fact and move on with our day. Now, for me, that was never good enough, and it's definitely made me the individual that I am today. Give you a little bit more background. I work in a technical field. I'm an electrical technician. gonna work on some pretty cool stuff. We'll pretty much leave it there. But the path to get there for me, again, was always why. And I actually started out life as, you know, as most young people do in the service industry. A lot of fast food, a lot of washing dishes, bussing tables. Worked at a couple motels here or there, cleaning rooms, and was well on my way at one point in time to be a manager of a KFC restaurant. And had I followed through with that from a financial standpoint, I would be in fantastic position in my life right now. Believe it or not, KFC managers can make a pretty decent amount of money. So back in the this would have been the late 80s, early 2000s, the manager of the restaurant that I worked at, between all of the stuff that was available to him, he worked for a corporate store, so he had stock options in the store and in the company, and was able to do pretty well for himself with those investments. But he was making 6 figures a year back in the late 90s, managing a KFC restaurant. Not a bad life. You can only imagine what those guys are making nowadays. Then again, I'm sure that's not everybody. We were a pretty high volume store, but yeah, even a lower volume store, it's pretty good living doing that stuff. Anyway, yeah, that was the road I was on, and wasn't really the road that I wanted to continue on. So quit the KFC and didn't really have anything lined up. You know, I was gonna go out there. I had wanted to be a mechanic for the longest time. That was actually even back to high school. Being an automotive mechanic was my dream. That was what I wanted to do. You know, the only thing getting in my way was experience and education. So after a couple of months of, you know, doing telemarketer stuff and whatever kind of odd day job stuff you can do, and realizing that wasn't going to work, I decided to join the military. Best decision I ever made. You know, at the time, again, just wanted to be a mechanic. Like, hey, I can join the military and join up and be a mechanic. This would be great. You know, and you know, the college thing, it didn't really ever dawn on me. You know, the college benefits were there, but I'm like, oh, my experience in the military, and get a job as a mechanic and not have to worry about school. My sister went to a private college and went there for 2 years. Spent $20,000 a year on tuition. Didn't even finish her associate degree. Had a couple math classes she wasn't the greatest at and wasn't able to complete her degree. And to this day, over 20 years later, she's still in debt from that, and with no appreciable skills to show for it. So I definitely did not want that to be me. So into the Army we go. And it worked out great. I joined the Army. I was a reservist for almost 10 years. I got my foot in the door as a mechanic. I was a mechanic for 10 or 11 years. And being the kind of person to always ask the question why works out really good, as you know, for anybody in any kind of trade where there's any kind of problem solving that needs to be done. And as an automotive mechanic, I mean, yeah, the turning wrenches, that's the physical part of the job, but turning wrenches is turning wrenches. Anybody can turn wrenches. It's the figuring out the problem is really the skill in the job. That's not to say that the actual turning wrenches isn't a skill. It absolutely is. Just ask any of my friends that I wrench with on a daily basis that I gotta point out all the fumbling things they do and try to show them some easier ways. But the meat and potatoes is really the problem solving skills there. And then again, years later, when I did make the decision to go back to school and got my degree as an electronics technician, same exact thing applies, more so even. You know, tons of troubleshooting skills really go a long way in that profession if you really want to be a good one. So to kind of get back to the whole, you know, asking the question why thing, and why it's made such a positive impact on my life. You know, it's extended beyond just the career benefits of constantly asking why and seeking the answers to those questions and finding them. Because it's translated to pretty much everything. You know, that's everything is fair game. There's nothing out there that you should not be able to ask the question, why? And I do as often as I can, every part of my daily life. You know, there were many times in my life, you know, just from a personal development standpoint, where, man, I'm broke all the freaking time. Why? And answering that question of why am I broke all the time was easily one of the most life-changing moments that I've had in my life. And unfortunately for me, this came a lot later in life than it should have. But it's still very glad I did it. It made a very large impact on my life. And yeah, if we talk about that for a second, so to answer that question, why was I broke all the time? And a large part of it at the time was actually being an automotive mechanic was a large part of it. You know, for those of you who don't know, mechanics work on a flat rate system, which is pretty much you get paid for what you work on, and if you're at the shop and you're not working, you're not getting paid. So, you know, the income is just up and down. It's feast or famine. And I had times where I was making fantastic money. I was living life large, and then there were, you know, 6 months later, I'm getting paid for 10 hours of work for being at the shop for 50, 60 hours, and that's not a whole lot of fun. And unfortunately for me at the time, you know, the reason of why I was broke all the time was because I did not budget accordingly. And what I found was that, for one, I didn't have a budget. That was a really big. Let's just miss a second there real quick. But yeah, so the biggest thing for me is I didn't have a budget, and it took me even years after that to finally develop a budget. But the real root for me was the up and down of the income, the highs and lows, the rises and falls. I just could not manage it properly. You know, when things were great, I never put any aside for when times were a little thin. You know, because I'm a, you know, mid 20 something year old making all kinds of money, and you know, it's never going to end. And for me, for me and a lot of people in 2008, the end was the big recession. That was a huge eye-opener for me. I was at the time making the equivalent of, let's say, about $80,000 a year or something like that. And when the recession hit, man, it got cut in half, if not more. It was pretty bad. And when you get used to living a life at $80,000 a year and you got to cut that in half, that is not a whole lot of fun. So it was around that time that I made the decision to, like, you know what, being a mechanic was never the end all for me. I knew going in I was not going to live my life as a mechanic. Those guys, it's just so rough on your body. You know, you get so beat up, and you're 55, 60 years old, and your body's just done. You know, you get to retirement, you can't enjoy it because you're just so beat up. That was not going to be me. And the thing that really did it for me, I was at a training event. One of the Chrysler was coming out with their next generation engine controller, and they had some factory representatives coming around and giving us some training. And the guy that was doing this training, you know, all these guys, all these trainers that go out there, they were technicians at one point in their life. You know, very, very good ones, very intelligent guys. And the material that this guy's presenting, I'm like, you know, man, this guy is sharp. This is a smart guy. I'm like, this guy, you know, I bet you if he would have just gone to school, got his education, he could have been an electrical engineer. He has that level of knowledge. And I'm sure he has, you know, I'm sure he more than enjoyed his life as a mechanic and then later on as a trainer. But for somebody like me, knowing that being a mechanic was not the be-all end-all, and always kind of, you know, always enjoyed working with electronics. I always enjoyed figuring that stuff out. It's always a good challenge for me. I'm like, you know what? Let's do this. You know, I've got the GI Bill. I can go back to school, get my degree in electronics, and that'll be good. You know, get out of working my butt off for a living and make a little bit more money, and, you know, kind of look towards actually having a stable life, and maybe getting a retirement and owning a house and all that good stuff. So that's where asking that question why led me. You know, it started with, why can't I pay my bills? Well, I can't pay my bills because I can't manage my money. Well, what else can I do to help me manage my money a little bit better and make a little bit more money? You know, working in electronics, working in something I do, you know, it's for the most part pretty steady job, definitely steady pay. Having benefits is really nice. I've never had those for the first half of my life, and you know, allows me to go out and buy piece of junk $1,000 motorcycles that I just have a blast with and hang out with you guys. And I was thinking about it for a long time. You know, what the heck do I talk about when I come out here? What are some good things to talk about? And when I started thinking about the whole question why thing, just immediately stood out to me of, you know, this is it. I need to start with this, absolutely. And the more I was thinking about it, you know, the more the other topics that I want to kind of get into at some point in time, they're pretty much all gonna, you know, it's the question why is gonna be a common theme throughout. Because I swear, there's anything going on in your life, anything that you want to improve, you know, anything that you want to educate yourself about, and, you know, a new skill you want to learn, it always starts with the question why. So I'd urge everybody out there to be that 6-year-old kid again that drives their parents up the walls and just constantly asks the question why. You might drive people up the wall a little bit, but people that are worth it in your life will completely understand why, and, you know, maybe you'll get them to start to ask the question why a little bit more as well. Definitely something we need more of in this world. So we're getting pretty close to being back home. Yeah, another couple miles. I'm not sure how much more there is to go into on that, but thank you guys for coming along on the ride, and I hope you enjoyed. going on over there?